Namaste. Hello, everybody. There we go. That should work. I'm sorry. I had my two cameras on two different broadcasts. I have so many broadcasts that I plan ahead, and sometimes my list gets very long. And I was, anyway, I'm here now, and we are back to the honors of the Tarot de Marseille. And today I have a whole bunch of decks on the table, ones you've seen before. Um, I think that I will go through my tarot cabinet and maybe flip these out for the next broadcast so that you can see a bunch of other ones. But also today, I'm a little bit inspired to perhaps do a side by side. I haven't done many lately of this deck you're looking at here, which is the Tarot of Rivso by Ben J. Gross. This particular deck is just absolutely beautiful. It's an Yves Renaud deck. Let me open the box for you and just tell you the inspiration for this one. I will get the English description. This particular deck, the original paintings, no, that's not what we want. The inspiration for this deck is the Jean-Pierre Payen in Avignon in 1713. That deck is the inspiration for this particular one. Anyway, I was looking at the colors of this deck, and I'm thinking it would be really, really fun to do a side-by-side with the Usi deck. There was just something about these two decks that just seemed to be talking to each other. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this and having all these decks out, and I can't say enough about how much I appreciate your contributions to this conversation as well too. So if you're new, hello, I'm Sadhana, and tarot reader, tarot teacher, and going through this journey of the Tarot de Marseille. Started back in January, and we'll be carrying on for a whole year looking at these cards, primarily on Saturdays, but also where, as I'm able, in other broadcasts as well too. Do lots of other things on my channel as well too, so be sure to check out the main channel page. Okay. Hello to Clevis and Arya, namaste. Dee, Saskia, welcome to all of you. So today it's all about the queens, and we will do much like we did with the kings. Now, another thing that I haven't talked about and is quite unfamiliar and new to me is Jodorowsky's, I think it comes from Jodorowsky, the numerical associations with the quartz. And if you are familiar with that rectangular diagram where you see the 2, 3 on the bottom, and then the 4, 5 on the next layer, and then 5, 6, and 7, 8. I really am intrigued with the 7, 8 association with the Cavalier. That fits so very well. And I'm just starting to think in other ways as well too. The valets are down at the bottom in 2, 3, and the queens are at 4, 5, which means the queens embody the characteristics of the minor 4s and 5s, and maybe the emperor, the journey from the emperor to the pope. I think maybe we can do this later on, but I just want you to know that I've been contemplating this because I read it also referred to in Rosario Salerno's New Choice Tarot de Marseille in his little white book as well too. I know in his deck is partially inspired by Jodorowsky's work. So that might be something if you're interested, and we can look at that at some point. But today it's the queens. We're going to look at their faces, their facings, their gestures, their nuances, compare and contrast these cards and this energy. And we did see the Queen of Wands last week. And so we will look at her again. And I've got on the left the two active queens, and on the right, the 2 receptive queens. And one thing off the bat I'm noticing here, the only one that is facing to our right is the Queen of Wands. The rest of them are all facing to the left. To me, that would it would emphasize their receptivity, and I know that she is right. So she is looking to this whole thing about rights and lefts it's intriguing, and it's funny because I just came off a discipline workshop. We were talking about mirroring and mirror neutrons. That's not the right word. In the brain. And I was talking about how school teachers, for the most part, with young children, don't tend to mirror their actions. So when they're talking about their teaching the children about right side, they really should be using, if they're facing the students, should be using their left and mirroring. So they get this idea. That's right, mirror neurons. Thank you. Which is part and parcel in teaching and learning to teach yoga. But I notice school teachers don't do that. And it's really, really interesting. So this idea of mirroring and facings in the tarot, be somewhat flexible here, because I think we are looking at that mirroring. So the Queen of Wands is looking to our right, which is a mirror. I honestly think it's that way. It makes more sense that the most of the queens would be looking to the left, not their left, as they embody of the 2 more mature courts, that receptive energy. We could compare and contrast the king and the queen, be they masculine or feminine, to embody active and receptive energies. So, and I want to say thank you to Clavis. I can always count on her for correcting my scientific jargon. It's lovely to have you here. And we all have our fortes, don't we? Why would the Queen of Wands be facing the opposite direction? I think that says a lot about who she is, who they are. And this queen, I was reading, oh my God, I really like this book. I mean, there's so many great tarot books out there, but I was reading in Tarot of the Holy Light, I was reading about the queens this morning. And I love how Christine, I don't know if Christine and Michael both wrote this book. Let's say Payne Towler and Dowers. They write about this queen and say how she is the queen who will hike up her skirts and get dirty and get busy with her employees. She wants it done. And if she needs to get dirty doing it, she will. The queen of, according to this theory, her theory, their theory is also the Queen of Pentacles won't do that. She's the advisor. But the Queen of Wands embodies this active energy, and she values action over anything else. And something really actually broke my heart in reading that description. So and I know it's not a Marseille-based deck, but it is such a well-referenced and researched body of work. And she said that the Queen of Wands could as easily be the farmer's wife as anything. It's in the approach. And the business of running the farm is her forte, the action of getting everything done. And she would not be disturbed by the wailing of the cows who had lost their calves to the market at night, because after all, it was bringing in money for the farm. And the stories of the courts in this book are really, really good. And I hope I can remember some of the other things, because I'll share them with you as I remember. So yes, this is the active queen. And it's kind of funny how the Queen of Swords is dubiously looking at her. I love the expressions in this deck. Clavis. There is a version 2 of Tarot of the Holy Light. Okay, good to know. The book or the oh, there's also a second book, if that's what you're referring to. Yeah. Of course not. Yes, referring to the cow thing. Queen of Wands is commanding energy, the boss, the action girl. Oh, yes, the second book. And I don't have the second book. Oh my gosh, I would love to have it. I should really just order it. All right, I want to read something to you. I'm sure many of you have this book, but this was hilarious. And I don't mean to just spend so much time on this particular queen, but this story really moved me. That is 10 of Wands. We don't want 10 of Wands. We want Queen of Wands. Okay. All right, here we go. I'll read this slowly. Just one or two sentences. Like the pioneer women of the Wild West, she can shoot and cook and sew and wrangle horses. And then in the evening she will smoke and drink the men under the table, dancing until the wee hours. Whatever she does, she gives the effort 100%, and anybody who doesn't is a loser in her eyes. Her Spartan approach to life results in a populace who are competitive, fast-thinking, hardy, and fit. Yeah. So we also talked about the hair last week. Her hair is wild, whereas the Queen of Denier, her hair is up in a bun, and I can see that the ladies' maids, the ladies in waiting, have well coiffed the hair of the two queens in the middle. Yeah. All right. So let's get on to the other queens, and then we'll kind of compare cards. Queen of Swords. This is a great queen as well too, and I'm sure you all in some capacity love this energy, the focus here, the intelligence, the articulateness. It's such, for me, it's such an inspiring queen, the one who is not afraid to say what she means and mean what she says and say it in such a concise manner. Yeah, truly inspiring and intelligent, and also very much connected to spirit as well too. There is this intuitive capacity of the Queen of Cups, but this one almost seems to have at times a direct link to spirit, and sometimes is ridiculed for that as well too. Her intelligence seems to travel, connect to this wisdom and greater body of knowledge that understands we are spirit. Spirit is within this relationship between universal and personal consciousness. It is a queen to be reckoned with, and rightly so. She is alone a lot of the time. It's hard. It's intimidating. I mentioned a workshop I've been doing the last few days, and we were looking at the way that we deliver discipline and manage students and children. And we did this great exercise, and it really showed insight into our modus operandi in how we deal with things. And it's funny, I was with a group of, there was just 16 of us, and I was able to put these 4 categories that we had in the class into tarot groups. And I laughed to myself and I almost put up my hand and I said, does anybody in this room read the tarot? And we didn't have a lot of time. I really should have, but I had a good chuckle to myself. I think I have it here in my notes. And there were 4 categories. One group tended to superiority, and that was due to their intelligence, time saving, and so forth. One was about control. One was about comfort, and the other group tended towards pleasers. And as I was listening to each of the groups report on their findings and the way they dealt into the activities, it was just so clear to me. There we go. There again, here we have something seemingly unrelated, wands, cups, swords, and pentacles sitting around this room. And I just laughed to myself. You know, people ask me, well, how do you see the tarot in real life? And it's like, it's there. It's always there. And this Queen of Swords, she, you know, and when I think about the sword and she doesn't want to waste time. She, there's qualities of that in the Queen of Wands as well too, but I really like this queen. And it's funny, I embody characteristics of all of these queens and admire them so much. D. Stuart S. Warren calls the Queen of Swords the ego slayer, and I feel she's unafraid to turn her critical eye on herself. Yeah. Oh, I read something else too, and I can't say who it was from this week, but that is the gaze. And it might maybe from the same body of work, D, that she can look at you and you feel as if she cuts right through your ego, right through to your soul. She can see into you, and it's almost as if she you can't lie to her. Yeah. I remember before I learned to control that, I was often very uncomfortable being one-on-one with people. I had a real problem with that. In my 20s, that I would look at people and I'd almost get lost in their, and this is actually an exercise that you can do. So you stare into someone's eyes and then their face sort of comes out of focus and you get sort of entranced in their energy. And I used to do this without being aware of it. And I had a couple friends actually call me out on it. And so I learned to be more aware of that. And I think the Queen of Wands definitely has that. Kitten Chops has written a great blog on the gaze. Oh, I'll be sure to check that out. Thank you, Dee. So yeah, so the gaze. I really like the eyes. I mean, I think this deck is so charming. Now the canopy over the Queen of Cups, what do you think about that? She's the only one where we can see a canopy overhead, and why would she have a canopy there? At least it looks like a canopy to me. She looks into, and I think we're pretty much used to seeing her with a closed lidded cup, and there's been lots of discussions about that. Oh gosh, we need to talk about the clothing and everything. Let's just do sort of a general, and then we'll go back and we'll look at them one by one, maybe in reverse order. This whole idea of Pandora's box and the cup. Pandora's box and the cup as Sadhana reaches for her cold coffee. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like this. You know, the great counsel that says, be careful what you ask for. And as a tarot reader, I'm sure many a time you've sort of looked across the table at the querent and said, Do you really want to ask that question? And I feel like she's looking at that cup saying, yeah, do you really, are you sure you want me to take the lid off this cup? Um, it's not an easy power to have. And I think she knows in a different way than the Queen of Swords some very intimate, soulful secrets about each and every, like her intuition is just, it's like antenna. And sometimes it's very difficult. And her connection to the High Priestess is uncanny at times. She's more personal, I think, but there can be a discomfort in her water element being in this dimension. And I often talk about Ananda, Shakti, teacher, mentor, inspirer of me. And it's the only way that Ananda can be in this world is when she embodies the goddess fully. And what I mean by that is she always wears her hair long and flowy. She's a white woman, and she always dresses in the most beautiful saris, and she's always bejeweled. There's this thing in Indian historical Indian women culture, and it has to do, I think it's 16, that number might be wrong, forms of adornment, and it has to do with the places you can wear jewelry and, you know, the marks you can put on your face and the clothing. And she really embodies that and embraces that at a goddess kind of level. I'm just getting all these tingles in my head. And sometimes I feel like the Queen of Cups has a very hard time. There's a great discomfort in some of the ugliness of this world. And so she needs to be able to go to her meditation room and check out and have permission to do that. It's really hard to, when you're that tuned in, to be here all the time. You need space. You definitely need space. And there's so much great mythology around this card. I want to go to the canopy comment here. Worth has a great canopy over the Queen of Cups. It is very complete and not a hint. So what do you think about that? What might that represent? Mind reader overload. I like that, Dee. What does that canopy represent? I'm just thinking crown chakra, protection of the crown. What other cards do we know a canopy in besides the Chariot? I'm not sure if there are other ones. Boundaries. She needs to learn them and have the discipline to honor them when she needs them. Her family, her partner, needs to know and respect those boundaries as well too. Yeah. Okay, and then the Queen of Denier. You know what caught my eye just now why I picked the card up was this the shape of her throne, that round bit behind her. I'll have to check that out. I'll get a bunch of Queen of coins on the table in just a second. She is the great advisor. She is the great hostess. She's deeply connected to the so comfortable in this dimension. So comfortable. But this is Clavis. This is about the canopy. Mm-hmm. Aria says Queen of Cups is soft and squishy inside, like a crab Cancer. That makes sense. She needs total protection because she can get hurt really easily. So she is like the, and also, right, she is the cardinal queen for Cancer, if you read it that way. She's like the newly molten crab. Yeah. All right, so the Queen of Denier. Yeah. Um, there's a largesse to this queen, and so often I find that she actually is physically large, if not large-breasted, and there's so much warmth in the theory of Ayurveda. She is like a really high frequency of kapha. Um, you know how the doshas, they have the doshas and the gunas can work in a sort of a columns and rows and columns. And so for each of the doshas, you can have different, they can either be at a tamasic level or a rajasic level or a sattvic level. And I really feel like in her element, the queen of, in her highest frequency, the queen of coins is probably more on the rajasic side of kapha. And I really admire this. Like I can see so many figures in films and literature who embody this rich energy. It really is rich. It's like the skin is luminous as well too, because there's an oily quality to the skin. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, way back, Masha, me, Sadhana, and Amber Lavender Moon. Maybe Jonathan was there as well too. And we talked about this. We talked about these Ayurvedic qualities of the court cards. And it was a really animated discussion. I think we did it over 2 sessions. I'll try to find it. It was a great way to look at the energy of the courts. So Ayurveda is a sister science of yoga, if you're not familiar. Indian medicine. Yeah. So she's fully aware of all that is manifest, the way she looks at that coin, and she holds it up. You know, like notice the difference between the way the cup is held, sort of balancing on the arm of her chair, or it's down, whereas that coin is up. And you know how Enriquez says that if you really want to understand the court cards, if you want to understand any of the people cards, then you need to get in that position and imagine and don those clothes and just sit there and find that position, and then you will know what that feels like and what that is. I know people have had a hard time finding. I often refer to that tarology clip, and it's not as easy to find as it once was. Enriquez short film about embodying the Tarot de Marseille. The Queen of Denier sees the cyclical nature of life and builds up to break down the natural order of the universe. So there is this tremendous respect for that earthly quality, the cycles of life, and I find a connection with that D as well too, and the fact that pretty much every system, this suit of coins, pentacles, is the fourth suit. It's the suit of the end of the cycle. So there's this also, there's qualities of all of the elements in earth. Earth contains water. It is one of those elements that seems to be more complex, more embodied in every way. Yeah. All right, so shall we start with Queen of Coins? Okay, I really had to laugh at this one, and I don't even know if I can say this on public television. But yeah, what is the Queen of Coins playing with? Because it doesn't look very PG to me. All right, let's start with these four. And then I think it's good if I stay close in. I'll get a couple more on the screen in a minute. Yeah, heritage is maxed. That's a good point, Aria. All right, so traditionally the facing seems to be the same. Not Wee Moon. Definitely not Wee Moon. Triunfi de la Luna. Her body's facing the opposite direction, but she's looking the other way. And I think in Triunfi de la Luna, a lot of the body positions are changed. And I know sometimes there is an animal in this card, and I did see an animal, I think, in another deck as well too. Maybe not. I'll get some more on the table just a sec. So what else do we notice? How would you describe the robes? And I think in general we're going to find this in all of the coin court cards. And that is the weight of the fabric, the luxuriousness of it, the value of the robes that they wear. And I feel like the quality, not the quality, but the weight of the fabric would be quite different. Isn't that it? That's an interesting question. Describe the fabric of the clothing of each of the queens. And I can think of a few different, like, generational ways to describe that. And this particular queen just loves the fabric itself. The textures, the weight, probably is aware of some of the technical terms of the blends of the threads and so forth. Another thing I'm noticing here too is the practicalness of the crown. The hat, like, it's quite wearable. Quite wearable. It's not ostentatious in any way. Like, look at this one. These are very kind of similar. Are any of you fabric lovers? I might put the one of these decks out here and just look at that. Yeah, this is quite extraordinary, actually. Let's zoom in a little bit. And maybe this is of no interest to you. I don't know. I love this kind of stuff. Like, it really kind of looks luxurious. I remember when oh my God, first time I was in Thailand, I think I was in, where was I? I remember choosing silks to have a silk dress made. That was really my introduction to the luxuriousness of fabric, and actually really being fascinated with the fibers themselves. I find it so interesting that the second queen from the left is dressed in that way, showing her bare leg. Oh, yes, the one from, yeah, well, that deck is, let me read you something from that deck. And you are referring to this one, right? Okay. Queen of Coins. Yeah, she's dressed very provocatively. But I want to read you something from the introduction to this deck. So, part of the influence of this deck, this style of outfit has been inspired by the world of fashion and certain specific places, such as the underground clubbing scene in Berlin, and in particular, queer-themed parties, environments where many people from the international LGBT plus community, music lovers, and artists of every genre meet and celebrate the joy of life, wearing their favorite looks and fetish items. It's like, how can I be? How can I wear all these robes and wear them in a way that makes me feel exotic? I agree with you, Dee. Yeah, we'll get to the lack of clothing on the Queen of Wands. So yeah, so I really like all these fabrics. Okay, what I wanted to share with you was, hopefully I don't have to find cards again. So there's coins. I need to put them in this order so I know what I'm doing. Okay, so again, if you don't remember this deck, this is the Tarocco Soprafino, the Il Meninghello variation. Some would say this is not a Tarot de Marseille, but okay. I mean, the fabrics that are on all of these queens are quite something. Oh, right. And didn't I notice this last week? How um her dress is hiked up, because there is that, this is the queen. Once the work is done, she will party, and she's the one who'll be, the first to take her clothes off. She's the one that is most comfortable with her sexuality and so forth. Yeah. Okay, let's zoom in here. So not just the clothing, we can talk about whatever comes to mind here. I think this is the one. Oh, this is the one that had the dog. So in the Triumph della Luna, there were the cats. Arya says, there's also the idea that the Fire Queen would be too hot if her clothes were too heavy, so much they might start to burn as she wears them because she's so hot. Yeah. You know, and when I read this, Arya, I'm thinking about those individuals who are on the path to enlightenment, who are of such a high frequency that they can't possibly have hair on their head because their crown is so hot. And there are a number of reasons why monks and why the head is shaved. But honest to God, this idea of heat is very real in a number of different contexts and ways. But I just thank you for saying that, because I remember the first time I'd actually heard of that and thought about that. You can't have hair on your head. It's almost dangerous. You can't function. You get overheated. So here we have La Corte dei Cherokee, also an Il Meneghello deck. And the queens are much more forward facing, really going against the traditional sort of setup with these cards. And that is very unusual in the Tarot de Marseille. I know that I was doing an activity. Many of you are familiar with the second part of the first operation, which is a part of a much larger procedure and spread that can take a whole day to do. It includes like the rose spread and an astrological spread and all of this. But part of that, traditionally, you have to look at your significator and decide which way your significator is facing. And I find that in more contemporary decks, there's many, many more forward-facing, forward-looking cards than there was in the past. So if that is the case, we need to look at knees. Which way are the knees going? Or which way are the eyes looking? I think if you were following Enriquez, it would be all about the eyes. Look at where the eyes are looking. That tells you a lot about the story. So why would the queens all be looking so intently at you? And I don't recall, I don't know how much effort it would take me to get the kings out, if they're going to be handy or not, to see if the kings are also forward facing. We talked about the kings 2 weeks ago. So let's just look, because this is interesting. I like these kinds of inquiries. Why are the kings forward? Sorry, why are the queens forward facing? Forward looking. The King of Spades looks forward. Because there's many tarologists that, like, I think this is important. We need to pay attention. And it might just be the nature of this deck, because when I look and when I compare so here's the Queen and the King of Coins. And honestly, I think they're back to back. I do not think they are. That tells another story, doesn't it? The ancient Egyptians were rather paradoxical about this, that they would save their heads and then wear wigs to be properly dressed. Oh, shave their heads. Kind of makes sense from the attempt to keep lice off and to keep cool. So keeping cool for, I mean, when you say ancient Egyptians, and especially the ones that were connected to spiritual practices, I think there might be something to this more than just keeping cool temperature wise, but for sure. And then, yeah, the problems with lice. Yeah. So it may be the nature of this deck. And so my best advice is that you work with the deck you are working with and get to know the flavor of the deck, because every deck is going to have a slightly different approach. Okay, so let's look at, now I kind of forgot what we're doing here, but okay, this is the Kamwan Jodorowsky deck. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about was this sleeve. I find this sleeve really intriguing on this Queen of Wands. And because it's highly emphasized in some of these cards. Like, look at this one. Is it the sleeve or is it something else? I don't know. I find it's odd the way that it's depicted. Do I have another one that does that? Let me know. Because it seems to be very intentional. There's a smaller card. Less exaggerated in that one. I'm going to put all of the Rosario Salerno's cards on the table. So let me know if you have any thoughts about this sleeve, because I think it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Let's move those out of the way, and I want to get all of these ones up here so we can compare the costume design for each of these ones. And I think that's a great way to look at it, the costume design. Did we have all these on the table already? I feel like we did, but let's zoom out. Okay. So which one has their body covered up more? Looks like Queen of Cups. Why? Queen of Swords is in a really sort of weird position. The way she's kind of sitting forward. There's something. Maybe she's making sure that you can't not pay attention to her. Well, this is a queer deck, Clevis, so they could very well all be drag queens. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll see that he's preserved the canopy. And this deck, I will also do a side-by-side. I want to find, so the inspiration for the New Choice Tarot de Marseille, I don't have the deck right now that was the inspiration for this one, but I would like to look at that in side as a side by side. That would be a great thing to do. Yeah. You know, this is the Tarot de Ozar. Have you thought about these ones? Because when things are not quite so in focus, then it's a little bit harder to draw the same kind of conclusions. But again, I think we need to be familiar with the artwork. And like I want to look at what's going on with the hair, I also want to look at what's going on with the way they wear their crowns, or is there a message in their crowns or their headdresses? And there's something really odd about the Queen of Cups here. It's almost as if she's raised up even higher on a pedestal of sorts. It's an odd perspective. And the headdress on the Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Denier. Last week, Dee came back and commented about language, and the particular word was honor, and went into great detail about the history, the evolution, the etymology of the word honor. And I've been curious and researching about the actual court card names as well too. And I think it's interesting how Lori in this deck just chose to create these abbreviations, leaving out letters, leaving it kind of mysterious. So of course we do have these decks have gone, some of them are inspired by Italian decks, some are inspired by French decks. It also, or even Switzerland. So the depending on the decade, not the decade, I guess, the century, the language and the spelling may slightly alter. So there's a country of origin. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good to know, because I will eventually, I don't have that book yet, but I will sometime in the summer. I will make sure I pick up that book, and I will contribute to the conversation from his point of view as well too. Let's go back to Aria. Too many cushions under the bottom, like Princess and the Pea. Yeah. Referring to the Queen of Cups. Yeah, I get that. Okay. All right, my friends. So I think we need to leave, like I said, all of the discussions, let's leave them open and continue to add to this conversation. Every single card for sure is going to be discussed again in a different deck, in a different way. We just need to sort of build this, I was going to say community of information like this, start to accumulate and digest, and let all of these bits and pieces just sit for a while as we explore more and more decks. Yes, you mentioned that, so perhaps that's what I will do, is get the ebook. Yeah, though I do love to have a book in hand. Because eventually what I want to do is to look at the decks from a historical perspective. it's kind of going from past to present. So somehow incorporate that as well too. But I'm quite enjoying this overview, and I want to thank you all for your contributions. Yeah. Okay. Well, have a lovely rest of your weekend, and I will see you in a week's time. And in a week's time, we will look at all of the cup honor. Okay. Take good care of yourselves. Namaste. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I haven't picked it up yet. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.